in your opinion, you are here now, at this moment?
Why we are here? Because maybe we know a bit, not a lot, but maybe a bit about schools or art schools and design schools. So and we'll try to maybe say some interesting things, I hope.
For me it is the 20th time that we exhibit here in Milan, first always with Droog and later with other companies. And I think still Milan is a must. It's too much to say I can't live without, but I mean it's really something that keeps you the whole year busy because you are making plans, what is going to happen, because going to Milan without anything special, you better stay home. So it's quite a nerve-breaking exercise every time.
Okay, and so maybe I have to introduce in some way who you are. So we have Alexis Georgacopoulos, who is look at that. We have Alexis, who is the director of ECAL, who is one of the best well-known schools in Europe, based in Lausanne, and also Gijs Bakker, that is the founder of Droog Design, and was also the head of the master program in Design Academy in Leuven for a lot of years. And the first thing that maybe join you is that you start as designers. You both started as designers, but you were involved a lot in the education as teachers and then also as head. And so the question is, for everybody, are schools tanks for talent scouting? Maybe. Are the schools a kind of tanks for the talent scouting? I mean, is it possible? It's
okay, but it can be a moving tank, or it can be a very heavy tank that doesn't move at all. So to keep it moving, it's quite a job. It's quite a job. And I don't like to be named teacher, because that is not what I feel and that's not how we do. We are much more, well, I speak for myself, art director, in the sense of it's our task to have contact with the world, to know what's going on, despite your age, because that is not important, I think. To be able to challenge every time the new generation, to challenge them and to tease them, because the profession is going to change. It will never be like last year. It will always be different, and they are the ones that have to fill it in. So again, don't name a teacher. I feel more art director, and I can later explain.
For me, you know, everybody wants to. There's always this kind of pressure every year, or to find the new talents in next month, and I think it has been like a fashion show in a way, you know, everybody expecting to reinvent the wheel at some point. And I think that schools are not about that necessarily. They're first about giving, in the short time of studies, to the students kind of a quite dense and rich experience of what, you know, a profession or an approach can be. And that, I think it's something which is first very valuable and also needed in a world where, as Gijs said, something, you know, everything changes every time, so there's nothing stable anymore. And schools are more, have to be like a, how do you say, like a chameleon in a way, but go very quickly, adapt to situations, reinvent themselves constantly, and then in that way be able to give to the students, you know, the best they can in a way.
What do you think about what he told?
I don't agree at all. But this is bullshit. No. Alex is right. But when I said before that I feel much more like an art director, that is to focus on the fact that we are not directly teaching. but much more creating a climate, an atmosphere, a space where the teachers themselves can work. And for me, as being head of the masters, I saw my task always to keep the teachers out of the bureaucratic, terrible rubbish. All those schools have this kind of bureaucracy. I mean, we have to deal with governments, etc. But it's most important that the teachers are out of the wind, so they can 100% concentrate on a direct contact with students. And completely different with university education and an art school education is that it is a teaching process from one-to-one. It is a teacher and a student. And it's not like you have, at university you have an audience with 200, 300, 500 students and the professor gives a talk and that's it. No, here it is really deeply working together, and then what the teachers try to get out of the students, their highly individual know-how, what they bring in. Because what I also like, those students, they come from all over the world and they bring in their own culture. And that is for us a great opportunity to see if we can lift it up, this own education, and do something with it.
Okay. No, I would ask you something that maybe you don't appreciate so much. But you as an art director, and also you, Alexis, as the head of ECAL, that we know that has a precise way to choose the students, or the words of the students that have to be pushed in some way, okay? So, which is the consequences, which is the method that you use to choose some people and not others, or the work of some people, not others, and if there is some consequences by choosing?
Okay, where to start from? I think that, you know, if we could have to name a criteria of what is the one that is the one which pushes us to choose students, I think it's first of all their curiosity. I think that's super, super important. I mean, if they come to school, or any school, and especially, of course, an art and design school, they must know why they do that, why they want to do that. It's not just to spend time, you know, it's a commitment. As every job, but maybe in art and design even more. And if they're not curious from the start, it's not worth it. Then we try, in the few years we have them, to give them, you know, as much as input as we can, show them what is it about. Also try to show them through projects or general experiences what they can expect, and first, I think, and most importantly, to make them understand a bit more about what's going on, and then make them, of course, choose in a better way what they have to do later. And the last part of the question, I don't know, what was it?
I think it's okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I do the selection myself, the first thing, when it is a personal contact, I look in the eyes, as long as possible, and to see if they are able to look back and not shift away, and that they express a kind of being there, no matter what age, because I have seen the portfolios before, and many portfolios are very boring. They are with lots of computer renderings. So in the portfolio, I always look for the handwriting in drawing, hand drawing and handwriting, to find any personal kind of information. Because I realized when I started as a student, I was 16, and I hardly had heard anything about art. I think that I knew who was Rembrandt and I knew who was Van Gogh. That's all. So I would have never come through in the academy of today. And this awareness for me makes me also be careful and trying to find possibilities to really understand who is in front of you. And of course, then later, then we start to work. And always, it is unpredictable which are going to be the successful ones and which are going to be the losers, or which is going to be the mediocre, or being the whatever, it doesn't matter. That you never can predict, never, never.
Or there is something that you learn by yourself only. I don't know if Gijs, you want to start.
I remember there is a kind of traditional education by learning to draw by mail, by post. And there was no teacher, and you learn how to draw a naked figure. You had to take your mother or your sister or your brother. But it never worked. And there was always, at the end of the year, when those poor home-cooked students needed to have a kind of live confrontation with a colleague to discuss. So, to be with human beings together is part of education, and I think that will never disappear. That was already in the Roman time. But the form, of course, will change completely. Recently, I'm very often confronted with the results of 3D printing. And as we all know, this is happening, and this is going to happen, and it will be that. But if you see an object that has been drawn on the computer, ready to be 3D printed, it can look very nice. But then when you see it printed, it can be bullshit, it can be horrible, it's lacking. And then, of course, what you realize is that knowledge, experience about material, about how it works, expression, all those things, that needs to be done, that needs to be experienced. And then you need to have people around to be able to exchange those experiences. Yeah.
You still think that if it's not called school, still you will need a place where people will exchange between themselves in order to learn. So.
I think it's also about the social part, you know. I mean, when you are creating things, you cannot be on your own. I mean, you have to exchange with people, you have to talk about it, you have to, you know, learn from all those other people's experiences. So you cannot be just on your own and just behind a computer screen. You have to. It's like food, you know. I mean, you can have a beautiful picture of a nice meal, but if you don't taste it, you don't get what it's about. You know, you have to really feel, you know, the materials or the exchange with people. And I think, especially in schools where a lot of different fields are taught, for example, like you have product design, but you also have photography or cinema or graphic design. That all together contributes to create like a unique mix of not just one field, but like a mix of knowledge which is permanent to a school and which is there. And that's not something you can replace by, you know, correspondence or I don't know, by learning in a computer. And I think that a lot of universities now and polytechnics are going into this MOOCs programs, you know, this kind of you can register in a computer and then you get like, you know, courses, and you have somebody who, I don't know where, behind another computer screen gives you your marks, and then, okay, for some things that could be done, but I think for everything which has to do with art, it's really, really not possible. I mean, it's about exchanging, it's about being there, as Gijs said also. I mean, and I hope that has to stay, you know, even if there's 3D printing or whatever else involved.
So basically we are now with this sort of like double situation where you have or a relationship between a teacher and a student, and could be a solo relationship through a computer, or a model that is based more on a collective exchanges of multiple people. So we have another question.
No, it's a question probably we are going to pose to all the panelists. That is, I mean, you're deeply involved in, of course, in education. You have you practice it, and but if you would mention an experimental episode or an experimental format that nowadays is going on in art, architecture, and design school, what would you mention? No, I mean, if you if you should mention here an experimental format or an experimental episode or an experimental school that nowadays is taking place somewhere in the world, what kind of experiment or sample or example would you mention?
And that's maybe a tricky question, but I think that an art school is by definition experimental, or must be. I mean, you cannot just say this is experimental or that's not. I mean, it has to be experimental because there's nothing which is, the knowledge is not something you can, it's not a solid and fixed one. It evolves all the time, so the schools has to continuously try to reinvent themselves and try things. Be experimental. You can, of course, you can put a label on it. I don't think it's always a good thing to put that, but to do that. But at the end, it's. I mean, art is experimental. Design maybe a bit less, depending on which it is. But all this mixture has to be something which is always moving. So experiments are part of the game.
Yeah, we have, in that sense, good experiences, but more based on projects that didn't succeed. Because there you can see where things are a failure. And I remember not long ago that we started a project that was initiated by the Dutch television. Because on television there is no design. Of course, they make a decoration, they make a kind of funny setup, and that's what they call design. But really a mentality of thinking about the complete visualization of what television could be. So we thought this is a great challenge to think about it. There was no literature on it. We couldn't find anything published on this. So you really entered a new world. But then honestly, I have to say, and now you speak about experiments, that it was also for us a too big experiment to succeed. We needed to have more input, we needed to have more time, more institutes that would give us information, because it was a too wide, a too broad subject, but still very interesting. So even from the negative experience, you can learn a lot. But that's what you need in your program, to build in this kind of challenges. And very often, those challenges come from outside, from the outside of the institute. So keep the door open.